So my presentation is a little bit different than the things you've heard. We've talked about Aviva. They've talked about some cool new tools, technology capabilities, and we talk about interfacing with the cloud and supplying this data to your clients, to your partners, to your customers, whoever needs them. These are all important concepts, but we can't forget the underlying security requirements that need to be measured, understood, recognized, and evaluated based on your attitude toward risk. And so that's kind of what I'm going to talk about today, is shift it a little bit and talk about risk exposure, and use some concepts that we've seen, proof of concept attacks that have happened in the last couple months in water and wastewater. How many of you are water, wastewater utilities? Raise the hands. Okay, quite a few. How many in manufacturing sector? Okay. Regardless of your context into this discussion, security matters, right? And you've all been drafted today as cybersecurity personnel, right? You have a role to play inside your organization, whether that's recognizing risk and how to address that risk, or whether it's at the policy level, is hey, how can we affect change inside our organizations to be more secure and more reliable for our clients and our customers? So that just kind of sets the tone for you a little bit. Cybersecurity in water and wastewater. There's an urgent need out there. 2 weeks ago, we did these presentations in Northern California. There was an active event that was happening with 3 Texas-based towns, small local munis. They had water and wastewater systems, and they were attacked by Russian hacktivists. One of the tanks, have you heard this story yet? Okay. It's not headline news, but you can Google it. It's out there available for you to read. One of the tanks in the water system was overflowing, and was overflowing for over a week without them being able to recognize it. So they were hacked. They were able to manipulate the control system, start filling the tank, dumping it into the water. Basically went into the wastewater system, drained out, and that's the only reason they found out about it, is because the wastewater side was like, hey, we're seeing a huge influx of water flowing into our environment. What's going on? They went out, investigated, found the tank was overflowing, and were able to recognize, hey, this is a cyber attack that was able to accomplish this. 2 other instances here in the last couple months. In November, Unitronics, PLCs. Anybody using Unitronics? Don't raise your hand if you are. But the vulnerabilities were exposed there, and some Iranian government-sponsored agencies were able to take advantage of those and basically manipulate and change settings in those things and do the same thing, drain tanks. China's Volt Typhoon Group, very, very active. In February, there was an article put out by CISA that says, hey, they're in our systems. And oh, by the way, we've been seeing these traffic patterns and behaviors for over 5 years in our environments. So not only are they in, but they're embedded in these environments, okay? Well, how do you solve these problems? These are challenging, complex issues. How do you bring a solution to bear? Any thoughts? What about patch management? Security patch management. If vulnerabilities exist, there should be a patch associated with it that will help me address that risk. That's number 1, okay? What are some other things you could do? Tools, technology you could bring to bear. What about monitoring solutions? Like a Tripwire, Industrial Defender, Splunk, that's kind of giving data and feedback to your users that they can see, like, hey, we potentially see a pattern of behavior here that we need to adapt to address. These attacks they're more sophisticated than ever. Used to be, script kiddies, you could kind of throw them out there and they could, go and figure out ways to manipulate things. That has changed. Now that we're seeing stuff that's sitting in our environments for over 5 years, embedded, just kind of waiting and listening and looking for a pivot point from the IT environment over to the OT system, these are sophisticated attacks. So the threats are complex. We need more skilled technologists to address those, to recognize those patterns, right? And to do something about it. Because security tools that I mentioned are only part of the equation. Our people need to know how to actively respond to those types of issues. More connectivity plus the increased complexity elevates our risk, right? And so we're always talking about how do we managing risk? What's the risk we want to manage? What are the things we can ignore, right? We shouldn't ignore any risk when it comes to cyber, but what do we want to do to address those risks? A lot of you are probably using outdated or outmoded legacy technology. Yeah, I see some head nods. Anybody still rolling Windows XP? Let's go. Anybody Windows 2000 server? And I ask myself, why? Why are we rolling with legacy equipment? And people will come back to me and say, well, Brent, I'm air-gapped, so I'm good, I'm safe. Is that a flawed argument? 100% it is. Concept of air gap that I've used before in conversation before. Anybody familiar with the International Space Station? The most air-gapped system probably that we have on, not even on this planet, but an air-gapped system nonetheless. What happened to the ISS about 15 years ago? Anybody know? Didn't make headline news. No one likes to talk about this stuff, right? Yeah, a vulnerability was exposed and put, it was SneakerNet. Everyone know what SneakerNet is? Basically, I'm sneaking it across the floor. And it made it onto the International Space Station, and they had some malware that was present on that environment. So whether your leadership will tell you that, hey, we've got air gaps, we're good. Whether your middle-level management or your personnel on the ground says, we're air-gapped, we're good. Should you believe them? I should see a lot of heads going, no, I should not believe them, right? Because there is no secure, fully secure system, okay? Outmoded technology, legacy technology needs to be kind of understood, recognized, and say, what can we do around that? How can we manage that risk? We talked about increasing connectivity, conflicting needs. Those are all present and relevant issues. You've got to get this data out some way. How are we going to do it in the most secure and effective manner to make sure that our data is protected and our clients are protected as well? So it's all about understanding and recognizing those risks. And when we look at things like this, I just kind of use this circle as a general kind of example here. Start from the outside in. What are your policies, processes, and procedures say with regards to training and awareness? Are you doing phishing campaigns for all your folks, helping them recognize some patterns? Are you helping them recognize through security awareness protocols that, hey, we don't just let anybody walk in the door. We're a secure environment. We're a closed environment, so let's make sure that only the people that need to be coming in, that should be coming in, are coming in. Establish that physical security boundary, right? Establish those zones where our most protected stuff, you can't just come in and walk in off the street to get access to this. Establish network security controls, right? Firewalls, routers, give yourself the ability to protect it and limit who's coming in, right? And what data is going out. People forget about that. There's a two-way street on a firewall rule set or a router rule set, right? There's inbound and then there's outbound. What data, or do you know, how many of you know what data is traversing from inside your control system environment to the outside? And who has access to that data? Got to be careful and aware of data exfiltration. A couple more minutes here. I try to stay on time because I usually could do this for like 25 minutes and it goes way too long, and then I've got Annie in the back yelling at me. We don't want that. So network security controls, host-based controls, right? You look at things like not only host-based firewall solutions, but host-based intrusion detection, intrusion prevention systems that can limit what can run on a specific control system. You can do a lot of cool things. I mean, unfortunately, there's still a lot of XP, and I see it out there in the ICS environment, right? XP and Windows 2000 legacy stuff. But you can limit what can run on that, right? Through application allow listing, whitelisting. Carbon Black is a tool that I've seen people use effectively in the ICS space that limits what can run on the application and what those applications can actually do. All the while trying to recognize we're trying to harden the target, right? That data is the target that people are after. So how do we harden that target in the most effective manner? A couple ways that I think you can test yourselves and recognize where you are today. Do you have an incident response plan? Raise your hands. Don't raise your hand if you don't know. Couple people, right? This is where I think manufacturing, water and wastewater can get better right out of the gate right now. Can we activate an incident response plan? If your answer is, I don't even know if we have an incident response plan. I guess the suggestion is go back and figure out if you have one. If you do, exercise it. What does exercising your incident response plan do for your people? It wakes them up, it shakes them a little bit and says, oh crap, we need to be actively ready and prepared for any attack scenario so that we can address this in a meaningful way. Same thing with recovery plans, right? Not only start with your incident response plan and how do we respond to this incident, how do we stand up the CERT and the team that's going to be involved in this, and then how do we rebuild the system to an effective state again? And how long does that take us? What is our recovery time objective? So these types of activities and exercises can help senior leadership recognize, like, we don't have enough resources to do this in an adequate manner. So it makes your job easier, right? It basically makes cybersecurity a business driver instead of a cost center. Because that's what most people look at IT and OT cybersecurity people is, they're just, how much money is that going to cost me? And we need to pivot and say, how much money is this going to save you from your reputational risk of being on the front page as the water system that got hacked and now people are sick or whatever the case is, right? Heaven forbid that happens. We are trying to avoid that. So make it a business enabler, not a cost center. Leverage your resources. EPA has done a good job from the wastewater side to kind of start with some, hey, we really want you to take this seriously. It's time to adapt and recognize that there are risks out there that you need to be addressing in a meaningful way. They established basically a self-assessment that you can go out and pull down from their EPA website. Anybody seen the self-assessment tool? It's a great cybersecurity self-assessment tool. It's got 8 criteria in it, and you can evaluate your risk and say, where are we on this scale? Great place to start. DHS and NIST also have specific control areas around 800 the NIST suite is 800-53 and 800-82 that address ICS systems. Lastly, and I'll shut up and then we can go to lunch. Threats to industry are real, whether you're in manufacturing, water, wastewater, electric utility, oil and gas. These threats are real and they are coming after us, right? They're actively pursuing us. DISA, CISA, and a couple other organizations, all the 3-letter acronyms, put together a white paper just 2 weeks ago that says, hey, there's huge risk here, and we want to partner with utilities. And what that tells me, as someone who's worked in regulated spaces for a long, long time, is that regulations are coming, right? Whether it's manufacturing, water, and wastewater, they are coming. And they will be mandatory enforceable, and there will be penalties and sanctions associated with it, okay? So threats are real. As connectivity increases, so do the risks. Cybersecurity, use it as a business enabler, right? Build your case for why you need the resources to do what you need to do. Use those available resources. And lastly, please, 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 take the time, effort, energy to spend some budget on educating your personnel, your technologists. That will create an opportunity for them to get engaged and learn more and be better at their jobs, and it'll provide a better solution overall for your organization, okay? Because they'll feel enabled to do better work. Questions for me? Quiet group. Did I scare you? Hopefully I didn't irritate anybody. Okay. Very good. Thank you. I guess it's lunchtime.